Hi, everyone. Welcome back to the Perspective with Viv podcast. My name is Viv, and welcome to the show. Today's topic is top 90s film. In this episode, I'm going to be ranking my top seven 90s films. I hope to do a part two of this because it just made me go down a rabbit hole. So who knows? But welcome to top 90s films. Let's begin. Starting out at number seven is Boys in the Hood, made in 1991. It was directed by John Singleton and it starred Maurice Chestnut, Cuba Gooding, Ice Cube, Lawrence Fishburne, Angela Bassett, etc. I thought it was a beautiful film because it was telling the story of black men in the hood. Okay, I liked most especially the fact that Lawrence Fishburne's character, who was Cuba Gooding's father, was fashioned to be a good male role model, teaching these young men about life. Okay. I love that Angela Bassett was his mom because that was a good dynamic. Although the family was separated, they had a healthy relationship. The mother, the ex husband, and the ex wife, okay, Lawrence Fishburne and Angela Bassett's character. So they were able to have conversations and maintain a cordial relationship in order for their son, Cuba Gooding, to have a good childhood. And I especially, once again, love the fact that he kept mentoring him and teaching him things about life. Okay. Another thing I liked was the character that Maurice Chestnut played, the boy that was extremely smart, that was going to places, the one that was going to make it out of the hood. If you're familiar with films, especially in the 90s, and especially John Singleton's films at that time, he made some really good films. We'll talk more about them. He loved to tell the story of people in the hood. He loved to tell the story of people trying to make it out, what their lives were like, to show their perspective. Because I'm pretty sure that's where he came from. So he wanted to portray those stories and tell those stories. So one of those stories, or one of the things that you hear or know, is about that exceptionally gifted child who is going to go places, and that character, that persona, or that person is like precious cargo. They want to ensure that nothing happens to him. He doesn't join a gang. He's not badly influenced by bad friends. He's not, his life isn't taken before he can leave the hood to go to school. Okay. So Maurice Chestnut, obviously there are spoilers in this episode. So it's about Boys in the Hood. It's about them growing up together. So Cuba Gooding, it was Cuba Gooding, it was Maurice Chestnut, and it was Omar Gooding. Was it not Omar Gooding? I truly believe that Omar Gooding was the third guy, but I cannot be sure. Ice Cube was also there as Maurice Chestnut's stepbrother, who was in a gang, okay, who was carrying guns, who was moving mad, okay. Now, from what I remember, at the culmination of the film or the climax of the film, there's a shooting, right? Ice Cube's character is involved in it, and along the way, Maurice Chestnut is killed, and goodness me, the pain that the mother played. She was a very good actress as well. I don't know her name. The pain that she portrayed of her child that had great grades, was going to a great university, was going to make something out of himself, was going to take himself out of here and live a good life. His life gone like that. And then you have his stepbrother, the menace, alive, still doing things. I mean, nobody's saying that a life is more precious than the other. I'm just saying that that's what the story looked like. Okay. That's how the film portrayed it. And it was so painful because that other potential lost, another young black man lost from, shooting, gang related shooting. Oh, wow. No, Boys in the Hood was a very poignant film. Like, it hits hard. So that's why it's my number seven. The next film that I liked, that is my number six, is Speed, 1994, Keanu Reeves and Sandra Bullock. Now, as I'm looking at this, my intuition is saying, can Speed be on top of Boys in the Hood? I'm not sure about that. I'm still going to give Speed number six because Speed was fresher in my mind when I made this list. I made this list last year. You can imagine. I've been wanting to do this episode for a while. but Speed was exhilarating. It starred Keanu Reeves and Sandra Bullock, and it was made in 1994, the year I was born. Oh my goodness, this film, this film was about a bus that had a bomb on it, and the whole idea of of the film was that they couldn't stop the bus. They had to keep driving because if they stopped, the bus was going to explode. So along the line, they're on a freeway, right? It's a bus full of people. I think old people or a mixture of characters, and honestly, Keanu Reeves comes in. I think he's an ex law enforcement or something. He has, I think he's a police officer actually. He finds himself on the bus to help the people on the bus. And somehow Sandra Bullock is driving and he coaches her all through it. It's a very high paced adrenaline film. Like there's such great suspense. And when you think that it's over, the bus stops, they remove the bomb, they remove everybody. I think only one person loses their life because some people start getting antsy and frantic. I always like those films where you see different characters come together and how they break under pressure. So yeah, but finally they all got out of the bus just for Sandra Bullock to be kidnapped and put on a speeding train. Oh God. I said, wow, so the film is not over. And this was another high speed train as well. So I really like Speed for the way it made my heart race. Keanu Reeves and Sandra Bullock's chemistry was off the chain. I liked it. I loved the way that they related. And I know some BTS info was that they both were crushing on each other, but neither was confident enough to tell each other that they liked each other. But when you see some videos together, when a man and a woman like each other, there's always that excuse to touch each other and act extra friendly, that kind of thing. So check them out. Check out Speed's BTS between Sandra Bullock and Keanu Reeves. Keanu Reeves is one that confessed, I think was Ellen DeGeneres, that I always had a crush on her, but he didn't pursue it. So yeah, just a fun fact about that film. So Speed, oof, Speed was a good one. Okay, now I can remember why I put it as number 6 because that's the way it made my heart race was everything. So yeah. All right, my next film after Speed is number 5. Number 5 on my list is Pretty Woman, made in 1990, starring Julia Roberts and Robert Gere, a classic. What I also like is that Julia Roberts' name was Vivian, and I was feeling it. You know what I'm saying? I loved her attitude. I loved her spunk. And you know something? I'll tell you this. It showed, or to me, it showed how life, you really don't have a manual. It's really made up of half luck. She just happened to be able to do that job or be there when Richard Gere was looking for someone, and he was not looking for somebody to sleep with. They had chemistry from the very beginning. But what I liked was that he was very boundary with her from the very beginning as well. And that's how you should be able to relate with people. He was like, don't touch that. I don't do drugs. If you're going to be doing drugs, then please leave here. He was very boundaried. He liked her, but he was boundaried about what didn't fly. And I liked that. It made her respect him, and he also respected her spunk and her sassiness. Okay, so there was an equal give and take, and they just had that understanding quite quickly, and he was willing to pay her and keep her company. I think for me, because I watched Pretty Woman before and I rewatched it again for this list, I thought to myself that it just happens. Like I think he was involved with someone on and off. I'm not really sure, but it's just the fact that he just felt like speaking to a prostitute. You understand, number one. And then he liked her so much that he kept her around for the week. And then eventually they did have sex. And you could just tell that there was something different between them. And I'm like, it just happens. It's not every time. It's not just like that you meet a rich man that randomly that wants you to be his companion for the week or wants, yeah. And that's what happened with Vivian. He really liked her. And I loved when he gave her money for shopping. I love when she befriended the hotel concierge who helped her with shops, who helped her with clothes, who gave her things to pay with and taught her things. And that guy that played the hotel concierge, I love him because he's the man that played Anne Hathaway's driver, chauffeur in The Princess Diaries. He's always played those. I love when you have those characters of those nice men that you meet that give you favor or favor you, and then become your close friend, and they look out for you. She was a prostitute, but he didn't judge her. He looked out for her just like that. It just happens. Vivian had that thing about her, and it really worked. But the thing is that, and she was also charming in places where she didn't fit in. it just goes to show that when you have that glow, that charm, and you're just yourself, oh my goodness, you can go so far because she was just being her and things were coming her way. I really liked that for her. So, despite not fitting in, she blended in her own way and stood out in her own way. And then, when you're that kind of person that is magnetic, as you get favor with ease, you can also get people that want to destroy it because they're jealous. That's what happened with Richard Gere's lawyer. He was jealous of that connection that he had with Vivian, that he almost tried to assault her. If not that somebody, even not that Richard came in and beat him. I don't know the name of these characters apart from Vivian, but he beat him up. I was just like, what the hell? And I don't know whether he was trying to con Richard. Yes, he was trying to con Richard, but because Vivian had come into Richard's life, the bad intentions that that lawyer had for Richard couldn't fly anymore because Vivian's energy was blocking that bad vibe. So Richard ended up making the right business decision, which caused that lawyer who happened to be in debt and embezzling companies' money. You get what I'm saying? Living above his means. And that pissed that guy off that he wanted to assault Vivian and said, what is it about you that is making this guy act like this? Give me a taste or something. It was so perverted. Anyway, thank God he didn't succeed. And Vivian, what I really liked about her character was that she used her mouth. She stood up for herself. She was herself completely. Oh my goodness. I really liked her. And yeah, that was it. Like, I just enjoyed their energies together. And I love Pretty Woman. And then afterwards, he was like, I think afterwards, towards the end, when he was leaving, through communication, through understanding, they were able to now know that, okay, they're going to be together and this life is going to be a good life together. So I really like that film. And that's why it's my number 5. I'm really, really happy. Yeah, I love that film so much. The next film that I really, 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 really like, number 4, Sleepless in Seattle. I've always loved Tom Hanks. Meg Ryan was the second character. He also had a son. It was the most cute film. I loved Sleepless in Seattle. It was just the most wonderful 90s rom com. And gosh, when you get it right with 90s rom coms, you just feel so warm and fuzzy inside. So for this film, I wrote a lot more notes. I really did a thorough research on this 90s list, and I'm happy with what I've written. So let me tell you a few things that I wrote about this Sleepless in Seattle. Number one, I loved the relationship between Tom Hanks and his son and the conversations they had. The son had inquisitive questions and his father gave honest answers. I loved how they talked about signs and magic. I believe in that when it comes to love. I think if you get it just right, you can tap into it. A sign that showed up in the film that I liked was when Annie's wedding dress tore as she hugged her mother. I loved how her mother told the story of meeting her father. And I think the wedding dress tore because it was a sign that she shouldn't go through with the wedding. That's just my thought. I also loved when Jonah, Tom Hanks' son, read Annie's letter and said, read this. It's a sign. Oh, I just love how they're talking about signs a lot in this film. Like I said, I really love Jonah as Tom Hanks' son. He was a very good character. And I genuinely love when parents and children in movies have that kind of bond. I loved seeing Tom Hanks get back into dating in the film. And I feel as though it was made it more interesting with Jonah, who was a scene stealer, because if he didn't like any of the women, he would act out. Yeah, so that was funny to watch. Then I also loved how they talked about reincarnation and how Elliot must have known Annie in another life. Elliot is Tom Hanks, we're just finding out now. So I loved how they talked about reincarnation and how Elliot must have known Annie in another life through the letter she wrote. Hearts are like puzzles with puzzle pieces, and when they get together, the puzzle's complete. Wow. Whew. I feel like Jonah was so pure, and that's why he was more in touch with the cosmic forces. I also loved how when Elliot, Tom's character, saw Annie, Meg Ryan's character, at the airport, and he was immediately drawn to her. Was that fate? I love how Annie searched for true love. She was infatuated with Tom's voice and his story, and she felt a pull towards him. I also loved how her friend was so supportive. The reference to Affair to Remember was beautiful. For anyone that doesn't know, Affair to Remember is an old Hollywood film starring Cary Grant and Deborah Kerr. It's one of my favorite films. And when they kept watching that film throughout the movie, right? They made references to it, and then they took a note out of the film by agreeing to meet up at the top of the Empire State Building. Okay. So that was really cool. Um, yeah, I really loved it. I love the play between that film and this film. I thought Rosie O'Donnell was amazing as a supporting character. I thought Walter was also cute. Walter was Meg Ryan's initial fiance, but I guess he didn't bring the pizzazz and the passion, but he was reliable. Yeah, he didn't have that fire that she had with Elliot. It was a funny film and a feel good movie for real. And it was another reason to watch An Affair to Remember once more. All right. And I think life really works like that. Jonah knowing Annie would be his new mom, Tom seeing Annie in the airport randomly and being so drawn to her, and then seeing her again on the road. I loved Walter, Meg's ex fiance. He was such a fun character with his normalness. I liked how he encouraged her to go to the Empire State Building. He knew that she loved someone else, and he said, "Let me not waste my time, or let me not waste her time. Let me just allow her to follow her heart because her heart is in here." And that's how it should be. If you see somebody is into you like that, just move on. So I love Jonah and Dad's relationship. As I said before, I love their dialogue. It was real and just the kind of conversations you would expect with a father and an inquisitive son. Jonah was definitely wise for his age. I also loved when they fought each other. Yes, they did have fights, the father and son, and it was nice to see it. It was really, really organic. They got that part really well. When the security guard at the Empire State also knew about An Affair to Remember and let Annie go up to the observatory was one of my favorite parts. I love when the universe just works. Like you get to a place at a particular time, you meet a particular person at a particular time, like, and people are just working with you to ensure that you get to where you're going. It's crazy. Then when Annie went up to the observatory and found Jonah's bag, but the observatory was empty, so she thought she had missed meeting Elliot there. And then as she's disappointed and just saying, okay, you know what, I let this go. All of a sudden, Jonah and Sam walked back up to get it. Oh, so apparently Tom Hanks's name is Sam, not what I don't know what name I referred to, Elliot, I think. So yeah, that's sorry about that. But then Jonah and Sam walked back up to get it and froze when they saw her. OMG, I loved it. That's what I wrote here. So basically what happened was that Annie's character had missed Sam and his son, and they both thought that, okay, this wasn't meant to be. We made an effort. But Jonah had left his bag up there, and I feel like now, I feel like it was on purpose. So they had to go back up there. And when they went back up there, that's when they saw Annie, and Annie and Sam locked eyes and they just froze as they looked at each other. It was crazy. And the way they kept staring at each other like they couldn't believe they'd found each other again. I loved it so much. It was a beautiful film. And that is why Sleepless in Seattle is my number four. Oh God, it was so good. It was so so good. Hi, so I'm back. Coming in at number three, we have Jason's Lyric. And this was produced in 1994 or released in 1994. It stars Alan Payne and Jada Pinkett Smith. So, what's the story about? Okay, another story about, young black men and women in the hood and what they're doing to survive. The story starts with Alan Payne, who is Jason, who lives with his mother, and he's a mailman, I believe, or a repairman. But he has a job, a good job in a union job. Okay. So then he lives with his mom, takes care of his mom, and then his brother is released from prison. His brother tends to get arrested from time to time for armed robbery and all these things. Anyway, so he is released from prison, and then him just coming back into the house, the energy of the house changes because when it's just Jason and his mom, the house is calm, everything is good, he's living his life, he's free. He's a very good white collar guy. Okay. I think white collar, oh, he's a very noble citizen. Exactly. Yeah, he's a noble citizen. So the brother coming in, he just comes in with just bad energy, and like they just know that things are going to be different. And immediately he's released, he goes back to his old ways, hanging out with his gang, carrying guns, wanting to rob, that kind of thing. So he's back to what he was doing from the very beginning. Now along the way, Jason meets Lyric. Lyric is played by Jada Pinkett Smith. Lyric is played by Jada Pinkett Smith.
After a while, he meets Lyric, played by Jada Pinkett Smith, and beautiful woman. They meet unexpectedly. He's drawn to her. Then they meet again at the place that she works, and he starts to talk to her. They start to talk. Eventually, they build a relationship. And I love the dynamic because he's like the golden retriever, she's the black cat. I know she's so sexy with her eyes. She was very cool, calm. He was the one that wanted to do things with her, like, and then she slowly, slowly started to warm up, and you could see that she was really a lover girl. She was a poet. And something I love about these 90s movies that are, black films. I just love imagery. You understand? There's always poetry underlined in it in some way. Lyric was a poet, so she would read poetry while her and Jason are chilling by the river or by the bayou. And then there was a time when they had sex there, the first time they had sex, and the image was just so beautiful because they made it seem as though it was like an Adam and Eve kind of thing, black bodies, naked black bodies, in a field of red, purple, yellow flowers, especially strong red. I even took like screenshots because I felt like I wanted to paint it. That's how beautiful it was, the colors. So yes, they had sex. It was a sexy sex scene. Oh, and back in the day, the sex scenes used to be raw like that, mad. Anyway, oof, it was sexy. So yeah, so these are a couple of notes I wrote about the film when I watched it. I said Alan held the family together. Will, no, will, no, will. Whew. Okay, so I wrote Alan. So I wrote Alan held the family together. Then I wrote so much trauma, especially with him shooting his daddy and his brother being a mess. So, spoiler alert, when the boys were young, their dad went to Vietnam. Before their dad went to Vietnam, he was normal, happy, good dad, teaching them things, teaching them about planes. Then, when he came back from Vietnam, he was violent, was aggressive. Then the mother had to kick him out. Then one day he came back, he tried to rape the mom, and Alan ran to the drag, carried out a gun, and shot his father in front of everybody. Nah, that thing traumatized them all. So then I also felt sorry for Lyric, who had dreams and hoped one day she would get out of her town for good. So it's really about these two people wanting to get out of town, wanting to leave, because separately, Alan and Lyric always wondered what was beyond the bridge that led outside their town. They wanted to see the world or just live outside what they knew. So when they came together, they could see that they had that mutual interest, and it was just something that they talked about a lot. Luke talks about it a lot more, but Alan, because he held the family together, he felt that that was holding him back, because who would take care of his mom? His brother is always in jail. His brother is a criminal. He loves his brother. He wants his brother to do good. What can he really do? He can't leave. He has obligations. So that's one of the things that made me feel bad for Lyric, because Lyric had her own dreams and she had a brother that was in a gang who wasn't a good brother at all. She was tired. Everybody around her was either dying or just like in jail. So she wanted something better for herself. Then I wrote so much trauma in that family, with the father coming back from war a broken man, the brother being crazy and messing up consistently. The mother really tried her best. Yes, Jason's mother was a very good mom, and that's why he really wanted to make sure that he took care of her and protected her from whatever shenanigans his brother was going to do. Then I wrote, I loved the love scene on the grass with the flowers. It was beautiful. Black body surrounded by colorful flowers, quite artistic. And the last point I wrote was, don't try to save people. Jason tried to save his brother, but Jason's brother wanted to rape Lyric, wanted to attack her and shoot her, because he had realized that Lyric was a good influence on his brother. For a man that was carrying so much load with the family and trying to make a living, um, having love as a beautiful escape enabled him to grow and bloom in ways that he didn't know. He couldn't see aspects of himself because of that limitation with the family trauma and the fact that he shot his father, because he still used to have nightmares about it. And he was a grown man. He shot his dad possibly when he was about 9, 10. Can you imagine? Because in these communities, the children have to grow up quickly because of what they're surrounded by and the conditions they're subjected to. And these were one of the stories or this was one of the stories that they told in Jason's lyrics. So painful. Oh my goodness. Okay, what else? There was something else I wanted to say. So yeah, Jason. So when Lyric came into Jason's life, oh, he made things better for Lyric. When Lyric came into Jason's life, she made things better for Jason because he was just happier and blooming. And when somebody doesn't have good intentions for you, which Jason's brother didn't, despite him trying to help him and save him, caught an eye on he caught or he saw Lyric for the first time and immediately knew what their story was about, and he immediately wanted to come in between it and destroy it. That's what he did. He was rude from the beginning. He was inappropriate, and you could see Jason trying to tolerate it, but still stick up for his girl. Do you understand? Lyric had enough and walked away, and then stood up to his brother and was like, "That why the fuck are you acting like this?" and all of that. What do you think you're doing? And he was just like, what am I doing? And all of that. And the brother just looked so devilish, if I'm being honest. Anyway, so, he'd seen that this is a good thing for Jason, and I don't want Jason to go far and leave me behind. I know that I'm leaving him on a low level or pulling him down to a low level, and I'm okay with that. I don't want him to ascend before me or beyond me. That's exactly what it was. So finally, he decided to come and attack Lyric. And that's when he ended up shot. And, after that, it was kind of like a burden was released for Jason because immediately afterwards, in the closing scene, you see him and Lyric, they're finally on a bus on that bridge, leaving their town for good. Oof, thank you, God. That was a beautiful film. Oh, it's on Amazon Prime. Oh, this film, Jason's Lyric, amazing. The next one, number two, Poetic Justice, released in 1993, starring Janet Jackson, Tupac, and Regina King, amongst others. Oh my goodness, this film was beautiful, and like it was directed by John Singleton again. And it was poetic from the beginning to the end. I loved how they used all of Maya Angelou's poems. So yes, I really like Jason's Lyric as a result of that. I like the fact that I could see artistic elements to it. And even though I'm talking about poetic justice, I'm bringing Jason's Lyric back because it didn't place so much on the poetry, but the poetry was there and the visual imagery. Okay. So then when I watched, although I believe I watched Poetic Justice after I watched Jason's Lyric, there was more poetry. There was more stories about people being killed on the streets, about people using music to escape the communities, just about young black people trying to make it in the world. And then Janet Jackson's poems were all Maya Angelou, and then she made a soundtrack to the film. Oh, that was even Janet when she was so on top of her game. So it was really nice for her to have songs, and I've always liked that thing when an artist, a woman has a film out and a song out or an album out. Like when Jennifer Lopez had Love Don't Cost a Thing and Wedding Planner out at the same time, and both were top of the charts, number one at the same time. Ooh, that was so good. So yeah, Poetic Justice was a beautiful film. It starts off with Justice having her boyfriend who is Q-Tip. Come on. Q-Tip from a tribe called Quest. Oh, so good. He was there. And Q-Tip knows how to. Oh, Q-Tip is an Aries. He knows how to rap. Oh, do you remember that song that he did with Janet Jackson? Miss Juanita Never Lied. What's the name of that song? Oh, I can't remember. you know, I don't want to take time to remember. I know but I can't remember right now. Anyway, that song with Janet Jackson. Anyway, he was her boyfriend, and they're together. And then her boyfriend was in a gang, and then her boyfriend had killed someone the week before, or talking shit about somebody the week before, and their opposition, the gang that they were in conflict with, some members saw him, when he went to go and get some popcorn for Justice. Oh my goodness. As soon as he entered into the car, he was like, I saw some of the guys from that gang. But Justice was already in the back of the car, trying to get frisky and inviting inviting him in, he didn't see when these men pulled up on him and shot him in the head. And they shot him right in front of her, and the blood splattered on her face. Oof, trigger warning. It was traumatizing. And that's how she lost her boyfriend. And she mourned for a while, wearing black, being by herself in the house, only going to work at the beauty salon and just doing her job, maybe hanging out with her friend from time to time, writing poetry, lots of poetry about grief and pain and life and being sad, Oh gosh, crazy. But one thing about Justice that I liked was that she had a good job. She had inherited a house. Once you have a house and you have a good job, really, what else are you really looking for? And she was very good at her job. And then what happened? Then we now pan to Tupac so that we know his story. He has a son. Is it a son? He has a daughter with a girl that does crack who sleeps with different men because she also has another child from another man who he ends up being friends with, or the co-parent. Um but the baby mama is a bit crazy, he gets, and they're always fighting. So he takes his daughter back to his house. He lives with his mom. He's trying to do music to get ahead, but he has a very good relationship with his daughter. He keeps his daughter. So that was a good element to see. You understand? A young black man that has a child and is caring for a child is very in taking care of the child. Like, even though the child was staying with the mom, was paying for her, paying for things, clothes, school, so he would be checking up on her. So when he saw that the environment wasn't really good because the mom was entertaining a man while the kids were out there, and there was a meth blunt, or what they call it, pipe in between the table that was already messy, he was like, no, I can't keep my child here. Tupac's mom is played by Jennifer Lewis, who is so strong in disciplining her son, you know, and you see the dynamic there. She doesn't really show that affection to him like that. She's very tough on him, you get me? But she's caring to the granddaughter. Um, yeah, Tupac has a good job. He's a postman. So I think I got that mixed up with what Alan was doing, but both of them had union jobs. So um, Tupac was a postman and or a mailman, and he was very strict. They even do drug tests for him at work, so he was very strict with himself and disciplined. Okay, so Tupac's name is called Lucky. So we see Lucky and Justice's story, right? Then they meet. Okay, so when they meet, right, it's not a good meeting. He ends up calling her a bitch, that fuck you, all of that. You understand? So they don't like each other. That's established. Justice's friend is Regina King, who is Lesha. Okay. Lesha has a boyfriend called Chicago who actually works with Lucky. So they are all combined, or they are all intertwined in some way. Now, Lesha is a friend of Justice, as I just said. So she comes to the salon a lot. Now they're going to have a hair show in Oklahoma, right? So they're all driving down there. The the boys, Lucky and Chicago, are delivering some big meal there. You get me? While the girls, as I just said, are going for a hair convention. So they say, let's all pair up. Justice needs to go to a hair convention. I'm going with Chicago because I drive with him wherever he's going to town, outside of town, make it a nice trip. Why don't you come with me? That's how she now comes to the truck. They're driving Lucky's truck. And then all of a sudden, Justice is like, hell no, not that guy. What? Lucky's like, oh, fuck, not this babe. It doesn't take long for them to end up fighting and for them to be cussing each other out. Oh my gosh, it was so intense. Fuck you, fuck you, fuck you, bitch. Fuck you, bitch. It was crazy. But Justice Suzuki is sexy. Janice is so sexy. Hair, braids, box braids, everything. Oh my goodness. Outfit. That's how Justice just left the truck. And then all of a sudden, Lesha, after coming out from a makeout session with Chicago, says, where's my friend? And I said, I left that bitch. Fuck that bitch. And I said, no, we have to go back. We have to go back. Chicago is sleeping at this time. And I says, Chicago is like, no, let her walk too. And then Lesha is like, Chicago. So they turn around and they have to beg Justice for a while before she finally, comes back in. Finally, Sha, the trip is a long trip. From time to time, they'll be alternating who is sitting in front, but a lot of times it was Lucky and Justice. Then Chicago and Lesha will fight a lot behind. It was just annoying. Anyway, they will make some stops. They'll stop by some, you know, landmarks. They first stopped as a landmark and they played music. So then when they were playing music, it was Lucky raps, but Lucky was also talking about his cousin Khalil. He loves his cousin. He said this is Khalil's music. Then Chicago was like, man, fuck that music, man. That's just whack. Lucky enough stopped the music and said, man, fuck you. Why are you trying to dog down somebody who is just trying to make a living and, do something for himself? Why are you hating it? Anyway, then Justice now said, but I thought you guys were friends. The way you guys talk to each other doesn't is so contrasting to what I thought. He said, no, I just work with him. Anyway, the next stop that they stopped is at an Afro Caribbean. No, it's at an Afro festival celebrating Black history, celebrating Black people, the race, the nation. Speaking. Very motivating talks on the Black experience. Oh gosh, at that time, Justice and Lucky start to develop feelings for each other. Oh my goodness. So then, along the way, there are lots of things, a lot of fights, a lot of people drop out of the trip, in Lucky stops by his cousin's house and finds out that his cousin has been shot dead. Oh my goodness. It's sad though. Along the way, Justice and Lucky even have sex. So it's just a whole road trip of adventures. But when they get to the end, Lucky finds out Khalil is dead and he takes it out on Justice. And then they just end up going their separate ways. The hair convention doesn't go well. Everybody goes back to their normal lives at the end. Lesha has broken up with Chicago because at one point Chicago and Lesha were like punching each other. He punched her. It was bad. He punched her. Then he tried to punch Lucky when Justice tried to get him off of her. Yes, I know I'm going back and forth, but I've watched this film in a while, but it's embedded deep. It's only when Chicago tried to beat Justice and took her down to the ground that Lucky then got up and started to fight him. That's when they now left him and he took the girls away from him in the car and they left him to walk. What else? So along the way, that's when Justice now had sex with Lucky, and then he found out that this guy, his cousin, was dead, and all of that. I don't know. So many things happened. Long and short of it is that at the end of the day, each person had their own revelation moments in terms of Justice and Lucky. Forget Lesha. Justice realized that she should no longer be mourning her ex-boyfriend. It's been a year, she still had bouts of sadness. That even her boss, who had a real principal part to play as well, just forgot to mention her, said you have to move on, you have to heal, you have to grow. Do you get me? She was like a mom to them. Anyway, so then what then happened was they all had their revelation moments. Justice had that moment of let me stop mourning, okay? And then she ended up wearing white for the first time. She looked sexy. Then Lucky also had that moment of let me apologize to this girl. I took it out on her. So he came in and he came in with his daughter so she could help her with her hair. And then he apologized. And then they shared a kiss and then she ended up doing his daughter's hair. And even the boss was like, look, okay, nice. Somebody now said, and she ain't wearing black either. And I was like, ooh, it was such a beautiful, beautiful. Oh, it was a peaceful film. Poetic Justice. Ooh, Poetic Justice was amazing. I first watched Poetic Justice when Michael Jackson died, and I was just taking in all these films about the Jacksons, and yeah, beautiful, beautiful film. Oh my goodness. IMDb says an overlooked, intelligently produced and directed film. Very beautiful film. You have to watch it. If you haven't watched it, I've given you spoilers. I apologize. Okay, so we're moving on to number one. Oh my goodness. Do you know what number one is? Drum roll, please. Number one is Eve's Bayou, released in 1997. Eve's Bayou is everything and more. Everything and more. Eve's Bayou is something that you need to watch. And I watched Eve's Bayou for the first time when I first made this list. And I think that was 2023 or 2023. Oh my goodness, it changed my life. So seeing Diane Carroll as the fortune teller, first of all, I love that it was about, oh, you see what I'm saying? These films talk about African American culture, like deep parts of it. You understand? It brings light to it through these stories of normal people living their lives. Oh, so Diane Carroll was obviously Diane Carroll is a beautiful star. She's an old Hollywood legend, and she was in this film as a fortune teller with a white mask on her face. Like, you know her from being very glamorous in her roles when she was young. So I truly believe that this role was her being outside of that, to the point where she had that thing on her face and didn't look like the glamorous woman or lady she played in most of her films. So think about that. And plus, she was, middle aged here. She was in, I don't know what age she was, but yeah, she was like older. So that was legendary to have her in this film. Then I wrote, love the fact that it was focused on a Bayou and hoodoo. Oh yes, African American culture has hoodoo as part of its roots. It comes from slavery, and though I can't explain it. I have read texts on it, but I don't think that I'm well versed enough to explain it beyond what it is in that simple form. Like I said, I like the culture display and traditions to the speaking of Creole and the discussion on visions and Aunt Mazel's practice as a psychic counselor. Aunt Mazel was played by Debbie Morgan, okay? And I liked her practice in comparison to her brother, Samuel L. Jackson, whose name was Lewis. Okay, he was a doctor. So he healed people through the physical acts of surgery, medicine, etc. And she healed people through her psychic practices. She would tell people the things that they needed to hear from loved ones that had passed away, where they needed to find things, their fortunes. It was beautiful and it was very sophisticated. Okay, so there was a comparison in what she did to what Diane Carroll, who played Izora, did as a fortune teller in the markets. Okay. She at first, when she met Diane Carroll's character, she was very obsessed by her and triggered by her, and but still ended up taking a reading by her, who told her that she was a wild widow. Her husband's always ended up dying on her because she was cursed. And it's true because Aunt Mazel had four husbands die on her. Okay, two different accidents. It was quite sad. Her story was tragic. You should definitely watch this film. Then, Lynn Whitfield, who is always playing a glamorous woman, who sort of like was preceded by Diane Carroll. You get what I'm saying? So it was nice to have both of them in that film if you really think about it. Lynn Whitfield, who is now taking the torch from Diane Carroll, played Roz, okay, the mom. And the kids were played by Johnny Smollett, her brother Jake Smollett, and Megan Good, okay? Megan Good played Cicely, and her acting was phenomenal. But Johnny Bell, who played Eve, was a scene stealer. She was extremely emotive, inquisitive, and sharp. The relationship between Mazel and Eve, the closeness they had was beautiful because Aunt Mazel possibly recognized that Eve had the power. Eve started to come into her powers that summer, and it's always during a summer that somebody comes into something. She could touch people's hands and see things, see visions, okay? However, Mazel told Eve way more things than she needed to know. Yes, sometimes it's good when a woman and a young girl have a relationship, but there should be boundaries. It's not everything you say because when you do that, I always felt it like you just pouring water on somebody. Do you understand? Without allowing them to breathe. There should be lines. They shouldn't tell her so many things like that, especially because she's like 6 or something. Even though she's grown for her age in terms of mind and weight. And one of the things I said she didn't need to know was the death of her husband at the hands of her lover. I felt that it was too much. Okay. Now, another thing that stood out to me was how Louis, played by Samuel Jackson, I liked their name, Baptiste. Ooh, even Aunt Mazel's last name was Baptiste de la Croix. How beautiful are these names? Very important, actually. They hold a lot of history. So I didn't like that Louis was a cheater, and he was a blatant cheater at that. 3 children, big house, good job as a doctor, handsome man. Why do you need to do more than that? Blatantly cheating under his wife's nose, and his wife knew. And when she went to go and meet Elzora, the fortune teller, the Elzora told her that her problem would disappear at the hands of one of her children by the end of this summer. And I think she also said somebody would die because afterwards, Roz made sure that the kids stayed inside at all times that summer. And it was this summer that Cicely, played by Megan Good, started her period and became a woman. Okay. Now, it was also a weird dynamic, the relationship between Cicely and her father, Louis. It was borderline incestuous. It seemed as though she coveted her mother's position, Rose. She wanted to be her mother. She did her hair like her mother so that her father would notice her, and pay attention to her. It was like she was in love with her father, or at least that's what it was portrayed, because there's some, there's some case studies on Eve's Bayou where there's a director's cut and there was an initial cut that was removed. Okay. And it comes in line with this dynamic between Cicely and her father, Louis, okay, or Louise. So it was like she wanted to be her mom. She wanted to be loved by her father and be romantic with her father. That's what I believe. They showed the scene in which Cicely ended up kissing her father on the mouth. And after a while, he was into it. But after a while, it's kind of like he realized and pushed her off and slapped her. At least that's what how it was portrayed. But later on, we realized that it may have been the father that came onto the daughter because she was drunk. The daughter used to wait up for the father. Like she really wanted her father to love her, even though he did, but it felt more, or at least that's how it was portrayed once more. You get me? So another story is that he came onto her and she slapped him, and then he slapped her for slapping him. So there were different showcases of that story. And whatever version Cicely ended up telling Eve, in the and what Eve took from it was that her father raped her and she didn't know what to say about it. That's why she had been acting moody all summer. Okay. So her father was evil. And on top of the fact that she already caught her father cheating with another woman during a family party in their own house in the shed. She's caught her father cheating and she couldn't believe it. So she already saw her father as a bad man, causing a lot of pain to the women in the house. Okay. Especially because her father was involved in one of the deaths of her auntie, her Aunt Mazelle's lovers, I believe. I believe. So anyway, she just saw her father as an evil man. So she went to Elzora, the fortune teller, and asked to kill him. That's how Elzora put his name in, used graveyard dart, or made her bury the name in the graveyard. One thing I know that they mention in Hoodoo is that if you're using graveyard dirt or doing something involving graveyards, that person is going to die. It's gone, it's done, and you can't reverse it. And that's exactly what happened because, along the line, I don't know whether Eve started to feel bad because, Eve also had a relationship with her own father. Okay, it was different, but he saw how intelligent she was and how wise she was, and he poured into that. So maybe he had done something nice for her with her just because, he felt that there was something off and he wanted to show her that he loved her, that she changed her mind. She ran back to Azora at night, and Azora said she can't do anything about it, it can't be reversed. And that very night was the night that the father died. And the father died because of his sharp mouth and because he was cheating on somebody with somebody else's wife and shamelessly too, so he got shot. And after that, the dynamics in the house changed because they ended up shipping Cicely off to boarding school or somewhere else. But everything in the house changed after that, just like Elzora had predicted, and everybody just had to, you know pick up from there. But just before Cicely left, she found no after Cicely left, because Cicely, as she drove off, put her hand to her lips for Eve to be quiet about what went wrong. But afterwards, Aunt Mazel held on to Eve and told her what really happened, or showed her what really happened, and the thing ended. And we realized that in trying to help, in trying to save the family, you know, she she really, really caused something that was irreplaceable in terms of change. They lost their father, and the dynamics in the family just changed completely. And honestly, it was sad to see that Eve was the one that held the family together. Eve was the second born. She was 6 years old, I believe, or seven. How is she holding the family together emotionally? She was carrying way more than she needed to emotionally for everybody. And that's not good to be as a child. I could recognize that being the one that sponges up everybody else's emotions. And because you're sponging up people's emotions, you then act on their behalf to save them. And most of the time, you just end up creating something wrong for yourself and for everybody involved. So I think it was important to just realize that, because it's also the similar story to Jason's lyric, where Jason was doing so much for the family, but as an older person, once you've been
kind of carved to be that person in the family, it's hard to shake it off. You carry everybody's burdens on your head. So I said Eve held the family together. We found out Cicely lied. But the main lesson from this film is that don't carry people's burdens for them. It never ends up good because she felt so sad and so guilty when she found out that Cicely had lied and then she had killed her father for no reason. Do you get what I'm saying? That her father might have been a cheater, but he wasn't a child molester. So it was quite sad. So yes, don't carry people's burdens for them. It was a good lesson. It was a beautiful, beautiful film in terms of just history, language, the practice. I love those kind of films. I genuinely believe that they were in New Orleans because they talked about the Bayou and they spoke Creole. So that alone, do you understand? Oh gosh, it was amazing. I loved it. So they said that the director's cut had been hidden or had been kept elsewhere, and the director's cut involved one of another sibling of Aunt Mazel and Louis, who was in a wheelchair and non-verbal, but had seen what had really happened between Cicely and Louis, okay, or Louise. Why do I keep saying Louis? Louis. I just feel like that court. They said that was the person that saw what really happened, and you know, they he was hurt in the process of knowing what happened. You get me? Somebody hurt him, so he couldn't say what happened. I think that's one of the theories. Anyway, I know that I ran down a rabbit hole one time on Eve's Bayou just to get more, and I'm sorry that I don't have all the info anymore, but you can find out yourself. You can find out yourself. There's a rabbit hole on the theory of what really happened between Cicely and Louis, and it involves a third sibling that saw what happened and nobody knew, and he tried to tell people. You get me? So, yes. So, those are my top 90s films. Thank you so much for listening. If you haven't watched any of these films, please do so. Watch them, see what I mean about the culture, about the arts, and see what I mean about the romance. As you can see, if we're talking about this list, the films that I've compared, if the African American films compared to the mainstream Hollywood films, right? These mainstream Hollywood films are more lighthearted in terms of story. They have time to talk about romance and, you know, e- everyday life. You get me? Finding romance in the midst of everyday life. While the African American stories are like finding romance and yourself and what's the right word? Riches, wealth, in the midst of heaviness and pain and grief and some hardship. That's something to think about. Yes. So thank you, and I'll catch you next time. Bye.